Hunter, Campbell, and Dana really got in the kitchen and cooked up some absolute dog shit for this card. We have an absolutely not generational fight night headlined by Magomed Ankalaev and Bogdan Guskov, not Khalil Roundtree. He got kidnapped by his cult, and we haven't seen him since. We got a lot of names on this card, you know, some terrorists. There's Saddam Hussein's cousins on this card. Ismael Bonfim's on this card. He's related to known terrorist Gabriel Bonfim. So we've got some war criminals or people who are related to war criminals on this card. It's definitely an interesting one, to say the least. I know a lot of people aren't exactly getting up out of their fucking seats and couches cheering on Magomed Ankalaev versus Agent 47, but whatever. We're going to break this whole card down, and let's kick it off with Magomed Ankalaev versus Bogdan Guskov. And I think Magomed Ankalaev is probably going to run through Agent 47. And it does kind of suck because I do like Bogdan Guskov. Seems like a nice guy, a nice cheery old lad, you know, looks like Hitman, and he's taking on a dude who's one of the ugliest looking people you will ever see. Opposite of a looks maxer, I just think Ankalaev's going to get him, man. You know, Guskov's coming in on short notice. And yes, he is dangerous. You know, he's got real power in his hands, has a nice straight right, but Ankalaev, I just think, is a far superior striker where he can use his leg kicks very well, body kicks, he's a southpaw, uses his jab very well out in the open and can land that cross. Also has a really nice front kick, which can be used on Guskov because he has that opposite stance. And, you know, a lot has been said about Magomed Ankalaev where, you know, you can beat this guy up with leg kicks, or if you really put him on the back foot and you immediately pressure him to the fence, you could bomb him out. We saw, you know, Alex Pereira do that. Again, it's been noted this guy's had trouble with calf kicks and leg kicks in general. But I just don't think Bogdan Guskov's going to come out there and just swarm him and smother him like an Alex Pereira did in the rematch. I think Ankalaev will be on the front foot this whole time, you know, using his leg kicks well, avoiding the big shots of Bogdan Guskov. And again, this is a Bogdan Guskov who's going to war with fucking 80-year-old Jan Blachowicz. You know, I know he nearly finished him, but he also got dropped, I believe, in that third round. Ankalaev will be smart enough in this fight to just move well, won't let Guskov back him up, can find that big left hand on Guskov like a Volkan Ozdemir did, like a Yan did when he's wobbling him. Guy is very susceptible to counters when he misses that big right, and he keeps his hands so fucking low, and his takedown defense sucks. So, hypothetically, if the mystical Magomed Ankalaev grappling wants to come into play, he could take him down. I just think Ankalaev's too patient, too smart, just don't see him getting caught, and you know, it only really gets interesting if Bogdan Guskov decides to get on the front foot and actually pressure him. And maybe Magomed Ankalaev, there's a world where he's broken from the Pereira loss and he just wants to, you know, make coffee in that little shitty coffee shop that he has in Dagestan. But I'm very confident, or at least fairly confident, that he should beat Bogdan Guskov on short notice. A better boxer, sharper defensively, good fight IQ, has just been in bigger moments and bigger events, and I think he's going to find a round 3 or round 4 TKO. Bogdan Guskov's only going to win if he flukes this shit in round 1. Let's move on to talking about Steve Erceg. I think Steve Erceg's going to get this one done. I know some people are saying, Ramazan, Temirov, you know, he's got the death touch because he's all juiced up to the fucking gills. I think Erceg's going to squeak this one by. He's 1-2 in a row, I believe, over, you know, Ode Osborne and Tim Elliott, where he was looking really sharp against Tim Elliott's whack ass. And Temirov, I think he's been out with, you know, after that steroid suspension. I believe his last win was Charles Johnson, but I think Steve Erceg is just a better fighter, and I don't want to reward steroid cheats. So I'm going to take Steve Erceg in this. He's got the bigger reach and, you know, such, much cleaner on the feet, big, and has had a lot of big fight experience, fighting a lot of, you know, big names like the Pantosias of the world. I just think he can land his jab in this fight, use his length, and win a close 29-28 decision where he's countering that lead with his lead hook. Also has really good defensive grappling and can use his front kicks very well. And there'll definitely be a moment in this fight where Ramazan Temirov counters Steve Erceg very badly, and we all think it's over for Steve Erceg, and he survives. I think even that happened in the Ode Osborne fight. Ode Osborne is shit, but Steve Erceg will survive in this one. He won't get chinned or bombed by a guy who's essentially just a hook merchant. Steve Erceg's the better fighter. He's going to use his jab, going to use his feints, maybe mix in the grappling to win this one. Ramazan Temirov's whole game is just blitzing in and trying to land hooks on you. Maybe he throws a spinning back kick in there. That looks cool, but his cardio sucks, and he really does lunge in a lot on these punches. What the fuck was that accent there? Erceg will sun him just like he did Tim Elliott and Kai Kara-France before he got fluked. Whatever happened there, I don't know what happened to Kai Kara-France. He's not dead, you know. I don't really wish him well. He's just off somewhere. But Erceg's going to work the jab really well. Either Temirov chins Steve Erceg within like a round, or Erceg just styles on this kid. So we're going to go Steve Erceg via decision in this one. Let's keep moving on to Islam Dulatov, Clavicular versus Wellington Thurman. Sounds like the name of like a side character in Ebenezer Scrooge, or what's the fucking the Nightmare Before Christmas. What the fuck is that thing called? Either way, we're going to Islam Dulatov in here. I don't really think we need to think that much about this one. Wellington Thurman, I don't even know who the fuck this guy really is. Haven't seen him in like years. Just a free win for Dulatov. Too explosive. Has a nice hook in the cross hook. Nice knees up the middle also. And I think Wellington Thurman, this guy took steroids and had that Bruno Silva steroid volcano back, if you know what I'm talking about. But Wellington, like, I guess he could try and come in here and grapple a lot. And one of his kind of, I guess, issues is when he's takes you down or you take him down, he's very comfortable just throwing up submissions off of his back. I don't really think that, you know, that's going to come into play here against Islam Dulatov. Guy's also a former middleweight, so he's pretty big. So maybe he lands a takedown, jumps on a sub, and, you know, wins that way. I just think Dulatov's too nasty, too strong, and Wellington Thurman's just kind of sucks. And I could see a world where Dulatov just lands a nasty combo, puts this kid out cold, or he, like, reverses a takedown, just finishes him with ground and pound in round one. Not much to really think about this one here. I'm going with Islam Dulatov by round one knockout. Let's move on to Damian Rzepecki. He's actually Polish, versus Magomed Ankalaev, a.k.a. Chanco, a.k.a. John Pork. I think John Pork is going to get this one down. Now, I think it's going to be closer than you think, because John Pork doesn't really have great cardio or a ton of power, but he just got a pretty fun style, I would say. And also, the Damian kid he's going up against is like fairly dangerous. He's a long southpaw, could take away the leg kicks of Chanco, and that Chanco really uses to build up his combos. Also mixes up his strikes very well and has nice takedown defense and scrambling. I could see him struggling with the grappling early, because he does seem to get like a lot of submissions on his record, but I wouldn't necessarily call him like a grappling artist. I figure Chanco just lands the bigger shots in this fight, finding the big right hooks and the head kicks, where Damian Rzepecki maybe has nice clinch work early, where he's throwing big knees to the body and landing some overhooks and some uppercuts in there. But his defense is kind of mostly just made on, you know, making you miss with his speed, and his cardio I also don't think is that great, similar to Chanco. I think Chanco's just going to build his way into this fight, eat some body kicks from Damian, eat a straight left, and then land a right hook, or eat some right hooks, which did drop Chanco on the Contender Series against that Rano. I believe he was Spanish. And Chanco, I just think, is going to find the bigger moments, the bigger punches, with that lead hand, line up his combos, which he does very well, and eventually finish this guy in round 3 with like a right hook, or maybe he wins a close decision. I think Damian, very early in his career, he does trade with Ilya, man, so, you know, this is a little Team Khabib versus Team Ilya, so there's a little bit of an interesting thing there. I think it's a close one, though. I'm going to lean Chanco by a late TKO. Let's talk about two fat guys. Rizvan, the Rizzler Kuniev, versus Tyrell, the Black Beast, Fortune. We are the fortunate sons. We are the fortunate ones. I'm going to go with Kuniev in this one, though. I'm going to go with the Goonster. I lean him because I don't actually think Fortune is that good. You know, Kuniev was a steroid cheat, looked jacked in PFL or wherever the fuck he was fighting Bellator, and then he comes over here and he just looks fat. He is pretty well-rounded, though. He has fast hands, which if you have fast hands at heavyweight, that's a legitimate skill. He was stopping the takedowns of, you know, Curtis Blades, who was on like one leg, and then, you know, Jailton Almeida, whatever happened there. Two very solid grapplers. Fortune had some nice double legs on Mohsin Siabura, but I'm taking Kuniev by decision. I think he can land his calf kicks in this one, his jabs. Fortune, you know, like, he does have a nice explosive blast double leg and hard kicks, but his fight IQ kind of is not great, and he has pretty, you know, noticeable gas tank issues, and I think he's significantly worse than a Curtis Blades on the feet, and Kuniev arguably won that fight. Kuniev could kind of piece you up a little bit, where you're like, shit, I didn't know this guy had hands like that. Nice takedown defense. I think he keeps standing, better on the feet with the combos, and he also actually, I guess, has a bit of a decent gas tank for heavyweight, can actually push some kind of a pace despite being a fat fuck. So I'll go with Rizvan, the Rizzler Kuniev, by decision in this one. Let's talk about Abubakar Vagina versus Saygid Izagkhmaev. I'm going with Vagaev here. I don't know much about these guys. I do know Saygid was a former 1 guy and lost to Nicholas Dalby where he kind of looked like shit. I think Vagaev, based on what I've seen, is more aggressive. He's younger, can land a nice right hand, can mix in the grappling and scramble effectively. Saygid just doesn't really have that fun of a style where he has good takedowns, but just kind of smudges you, doesn't really do any crazy damage, and also seems to gas if you just get it past the second round. Vagaev, whatever the kid's name is, he's a better boxer than Nicholas Dalby. I'd also say he might be better in the clinch. And Vagaev beat Michel Pereira like years ago when Michel Pereira, you know, people were like, this guy's the dark horse of the middleweight welterweight division, man. And, you know, he's still kind of largely untested. But I think, you know, Izagkhmaev just fucking whatever. We'll go with Vagina by decision. Let's talk about a fight that I am pretty excited about because I'm going with the controversy here. I think Thomas, the Tank, the Train, Petersen's going to take this one by decision. And listen, I think there's a high likelihood that fucking Valter Walker just heel hooks this guy. It wouldn't shock me, but eventually the gimmick's got to end. And I think Thomas, the Train, Petersen could be that guy. Could low-key craft it up because, again, eventually the gimmick's got to end. It's going to get figured out. And, you know, he's coming off a layoff where he broke his leg. And he also, since the time he was in the octagon, he heel hooked a guy with no legs. So I think I'm going to go with Thomas Petersen this one. You know, Valter Walker has good calf kicks and obviously can sub you, but his striking is so relatively unproven. We don't really know what he really has on the feet. And, you know, he'll shoot it on double legs or slams, but he just kind of, you don't really know how that cardio is going to hold up. And I feel like if Thomas Petersen could just stuff the first couple initial takedowns from Valter Walker and actually make him work in that first round, I could see him winning this one just off Valter Walker kind of gassing out. You know, Thomas Petersen's southpaw, has a pretty big wrestling background. It's got good takedown defense. Like, Vitor Petrino was struggling to get him down, and Vitor Petrino, I guess, eventually knocked him out. But Thomas Petersen was surviving that fight for a while, and it took him time to find a finish against Thomas Petersen. Thomas Petersen only really seems to lose to guys with actual big KO power, not a Valter Walker. He's kind of hard to out-grapple and out-wrestle him, has faced far better comp than a Valter Walker. And Petersen's probably the best guy Valter Walker's actually fought. And Valter, we've seen him in the past, you know, struggle to win these fights when he can't find the takedowns early. And I think if Petersen's out here stuffing the first two and you're hearing the choo-choo, Thomas the Train's here, and Valter Walker's struggling a little bit, and it's like Thomas and friends are showing up, Percy, all the guys, it's going to be fucking bad news bears for Valter Walker, and could be a long night at the office for him. You know, Thomas Petersen, again, not a guy who's necessarily going to show you a ton on the feet, but he can mix up the punches to the head and the body, then could throw in that nasty key lock submission in there sometimes, and sub him. I'm going with Thomas Petersen by decision. This might be the only pick I get wrong, but I want to live and die with Thomas Petersen because eventually this heel hook gimmick has got to end. Let's move on to Dustin Jacoby, one of the favorites of the channel, a guy who I've tried to wish the Glover Teixeira, like 80-year-old title run on. I don't know if it's going to actually happen, but I'm taking Jacoby here. You know, he was supposed to fight like 8 different dudes, swore they changed his opponent like 100 times. But, you know, Mohamed Said is interesting, though, because he's actually solid technically and has nice combos, can find his right hand well and mix in head kicks at the end of the combos, which I really like. But Dustin Jacoby is it my guy? You know, I've been trying to will this guy into a Glover Teixeira title run. He has the power, has the experience, and Said, I think, keeps his hands too low in this one and moves very well. Dustin Jacoby has good movement, has actual one-punch KO power in the UFC, but is very jab kind of focused in longer fights. Maybe that's why he would win this one by decision. His head movement's not as great as just his overall offensive movement in general. He can kind of get stuck, but I still trust him to win this. Again, like, Said is pretty boxing heavy for the most part, like won't check kicks at all, and can kind of get stuck on the fence and in the clinch, and he will throw a variety of kicks at you to kind of just deter you away from your game and time knees up well and overhands to try and close the distance on you. But I just trust the crafty vetness of a Dustin Jacoby where he will out-damage him and land big calf kicks and counter him with the right hand, maybe hurt him in the clinch. Like Said Nurmagomedov, not Mohamed Said. I could see Said starting off well because he's younger and maybe Dustin Jacoby gets chinned early and he somehow scrambles up and survives. But most of Mohamed Said's resume, even though he looks very fluid with his striking, is against mostly bums, and his cardio is questionable and he doesn't check calf kicks. So I'm going with the GOAT himself, Dustin Jacoby, to get a late finish in this one. Let's talk about Santiago Ponzinibbio, versus Sam Patterson, Santiago Ponzinibbio from Argentina. He might be related to Hitler, we don't know. And Sam Patterson got a snooze fest on by MVP, the classic MVP where he doesn't engage you, you don't really engage him, and then he just blames the shit fight on his opponent, despite the fact that he does that in every single fight. But Sam Patterson's going to nuke out Santiago Ponzinibbio. Like, there was a moment where Ponzinibbio was actually somewhat decent, like once upon a time ago, but then like injuries and just time slowed him down, just getting aged. But he's still a, a vet who has power and can land a big right hand and calf kicks, but he just gets rocked too much now and it's just too old. Chin's gone, struggles against combos. Sam Patterson's too big, too strong, too long. Hits very hard, can finish you in a variety of different ways. And it's funny because he used to be kind of like a grappler when he came into the UFC, but then kind of just developed this love for striking, and he can land that big right on you. And I think he's just going to kill Santiago Ponzinibbio, and people probably think he died after he gets hit in this one, and you're like, we got to scrape him off the floor to get to the next fight. Sam Patterson will just have Santiago coming forward, probably land like some nasty counter on him, and then maybe Ponzinibbio survives and just goes to the ground, and then Patterson either submits him there or gets the ground and pound. The one thing I will say, though, that would make me wary of picking a Sam Patterson is he does kind of have shit head movement and his chin is up in the air. But I just figure he's younger and Ponzinibbio's pretty washed. Let's talk about Ismael Bonfim, related to terrorist Gabriel Bonfim. Yes, I said he's a terrorist. He's going up against Axel Sola, a Frenchman. And usually I don't pick Frenchmen, but I do like Axel Sola overall after the Mason Jones fight. That was pretty fucking sick. And then I think he also beat the shit out of like Reese McKee or one of those other fucking freaks or something. One of those other Skeletor looking motherfuckers. I'm going to go with Axel Sola here. Bonfim, I don't even think is that bad, where he's pretty speed oriented and mostly fights fine hooks and has a high guard and has solid takedown defense and scrambling. Just hasn't really been tested in the grappling department in a minute, and you can kind of keep him on the fence, which worries me. Sola, he can go into brawls with you, can go into wars. And the funny thing about Ismael Bonfim, as much as I shit on Gabriel Bonfim, he's just a loser in comparison to his brother. Ismael Bonfim just not really that good. There's a world where maybe he stays composed in this fight and can maybe chin Axel Sola, who's just not that great defensively. But I think Axel Sola's kind of wild card, dangerous ability will make me pick him. Bonfim doesn't really hit like his brother, and Sola's such a big, powerful southpaw for the division. Has a nice jab and nasty kicks. Mason Jones was beating him up with kicks, though, so maybe Bonfim goes to that. But I think Axel Sola will land his straight left a lot, be fairly patient with it. Also, his ground game has continued to get better, has nice knees in the clinch. I just think Bonfim will probably slow down this one, and his chin isn't that great. Sola can land big knees, land his jab, land really nice body kicks, which we really saw bother Ismael Bonfim against BSD, a long time ago. I just think the pressure, the kicks will break down Bonfim as it goes on, and Axel Sola will get a late finish or a decision win in this over Ismael Bonfim. I don't really need to break this one down. Brenson Ribeiro's terrible. You spawn in the light heavyweight division, you fight this guy, and then you chin him. That's usually how it goes with Brenson Ribeiro. He's just not very good. Magomed Ankalaev, he should knock this guy out in one. He's pretty well-rounded. Ribeiro just gets paid to get finished, and Tuchov has nice kicks, nice lead head kick that he can throw up there. Will mix it up pretty well, can bomb you. Also mix in some takedowns when he wants to. You don't really got to think too much about that one. Let's talk about Baby Khabib versus Nurullo Aliev versus Mike Davis. Mike Davis, did he play in the NFL? I might have made that up. But Nurullo Aliev, I'm going to take him in this one. Mike Davis, I think, is always live for a crafty vet performance, but I just don't think he's going to get this one done. He fights like once a year. He has crafty jiu-jitsu and solid boxing, but I just think Aliev's grappling is that much better. And Mike Davis maybe flukes some shit off the back, but I just don't think it's going to happen. You know what Nurullo Aliev's going to do in there. We just know who he is. He's beat plenty of, jiu-jitsu guys before, and he beat Shamrock, man. I mean, who does that to Shamrock? And he was even out striking him. I mean, he's just moving different against Shamrock. Just otherworldly level of fighter Shamrock and Nurullo Aliev are. I'll just go in with decision this one. I think he'll just land enough takedowns with the big shots of Mike Davis, who just leaves himself very open and getting taken down. Nurullo Aliev by smudge decision. Abdul Hussein versus Cody Gibson, related to some Saddam Hussein, actually. Fun fact, I don't even know if that fun fact is true. Cody Gibson, I think he's a history teacher. He's bigger and longer, can use his jab, but Hussein is just a far better grappler and has had improved striking. Even did okay against Mokaev. Had some nice scrambles in that one. Did I make up that he actually fought Muhammad Mokaev? Whatever. He's from fucking Finland too. He definitely is not from Finland. But he's shorter and kind of undersized for the division, but has a nice guillotine, has a nice ninja choke in there that he can get to you. I just figure he'll out grapple and slow down Cody Gibson, and we'll probably win this one by decision. That's the card though. Really a special one, a banger, some might say. Shout out Oasis for that one. I'm going Magomed Ankalaev to beat Bogdan Guskov and then call it Alex Pereira for the trilogy. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. The doctor is signing off.